The first warning came from the distant sensors of the Krell Dominion fleet. They reported a massive object entering the edge of their territory. At first, they thought it was a rogue asteroid. But when the object began sending signals in a language none of their systems could decode, alarms rang across the command stations. War drills were ordered before they even confirmed who it was. On the other side of that dark space, a single human exploration ship drifted quietly. It was old, patched with mismatched plating, and carried scars from dozens of journeys. Inside, Captain Daniel Cross looked at the incoming warnings on his screen. His crew was small, only 6 people, but each one knew that if the Krell thought they were a threat, they would fire without hesitation. The Krell Dominion was not known for patience. Their culture saw fear as weakness, and any unknown contact was often destroyed first and questioned later. In their war room, Commander Shear paced, his long claws tapping against the metal floor. Reports showed the human ship moving slowly, as if daring them to act. "If they enter further, we attack," he growled to his officers. Back on the human ship, Daniel's first officer, Mara, leaned over the console. "We're getting intercepted," she said, her voice tight. Daniel didn't answer at once. He studied the star map, noting the shortest route out of Krell space. But retreat meant losing the chance to meet whoever lived here, and Earth had sent him to make contact, not to run. The first meeting happened in the shadow of a dead moon. Krell warships surrounded the human vessel, their spiked hulls glinting like blades in the starlight. A Krell boarding shuttle latched onto the side of Daniel's ship with a deep, metallic thud. Inside the narrow airlock, tension built with every hiss of pressurization. When the door slid open, the Krell warriors stepped through, weapons raised. Their armor was dark green, their eyes burning with suspicion. Behind them, a smaller figure followed. She was not armored like the rest, but dressed in flowing fabric that shimmered under the ship's lights. Her eyes locked on the human captain. And for a moment, her steps faltered. It was Princess Sira, daughter of the Krell High Chieftain. She had demanded to be part of the boarding mission to see the intruders for herself. But the moment she saw Daniel, she stopped halfway, her gaze flicking to the large, 4-legged creature standing beside him. It was a dog, tall, strong, its golden fur gleaming. The princess froze, fear in her eyes as the animal's tail wagged slowly. Daniel noticed her reaction immediately. "He won't bite," he said calmly, gesturing to the dog. The animal gave a soft bark, as if agreeing. The Krell warriors looked confused. They had expected human weapons, not strange creatures standing guard beside their leader. Sira's instincts told her to step back, but pride kept her feet in place. "What is this thing?" she asked, her voice steady but her hands tense. Daniel smiled faintly. "He's called Rex. He's my friend." The word friend seemed strange to the Krell, who viewed animals only as tools or prey. The boarding party searched the ship, finding nothing threatening. But the presence of Rex kept them uneasy. They had never seen a creature look at them without fear. In Krell culture, every living thing either bowed or ran when faced with a warrior. Yet this dog simply watched, relaxed but ready, as if he feared nothing. Sira's fear turned into curiosity. "Why does he stay by your side?" she asked. Daniel's answer was simple. "Because he trusts me, and I trust him." That idea unsettled her more than the creature's teeth. Trust was rare in the Krell Dominion, especially between different species. Commander Shear finished his inspection and gave the order to return. But Sira lingered at the airlock, her gaze still locked on the human and his dog. Something about them, calm, unshaken, unafraid, was different from the enemy she had been taught to hate. She said nothing, but her mind was already turning with questions. As the Krell shuttle pulled away, Daniel stood on the deck, watching their ships vanish into the dark. He knew this was only the first step. The Krell had not fired on them yet, but neither had they welcomed them. Still, he had seen the princess's eyes, and in them, he sensed something that might change the coming days. Far away, in the Krell capital, news of the human meeting spread quickly. The High Chieftain listened to his daughter's account, frowning at her hesitation when she spoke of the dog. To him, it was a sign of weakness. To her, it was something else entirely, a moment that had shaken her understanding of what humans were. The seeds of conflict had been planted. Neither side knew if the next meeting would bring peace or war. But one thing was certain, this was no ordinary first contact. The Krell had seen something they did not understand, and the humans had stepped into a storm they did not yet see coming. Asterisk. The human ship remained in orbit near the dead moon for 3 more days. Daniel knew they were being watched. Every movement of his crew, every scan of the planet below would be recorded by Krell eyes. He told his people to remain calm and act as though nothing unusual was happening. Inside the Krell flagship, Princess Sira replayed the moment she had seen the human's dog. It was not just the animal that troubled her. It was the way Daniel had spoken, the ease in his tone, and the strange warmth in his eyes. No Krell warrior spoke that way to a potential enemy. She could not explain why it stayed in her mind. Commander. Sheer noticed her distraction. He confronted her in the War Council chamber, asking why she still thought about the intruder. She denied it, but her voice lacked the usual sharpness. Sheer warned her that humans could not be trusted, and that they were masters of deception. Sira said nothing, yet her silence was answer enough for him. On the 4th day, Daniel received a message from the Krell flagship. It was an invitation to meet in person on neutral ground. Mara urged him not to go, believing it was a trap. Daniel listened but decided the risk was worth it. If he could speak directly with their leaders, perhaps they could avoid a fight neither side wanted. The meeting place was an abandoned mining station on the surface of the dead moon. The walls were scorched from old battles, and the air was stale. Daniel arrived with Mara and Rex, wearing a simple flight suit without weapons. Sira stood waiting, flanked by 2 guards, her eyes narrowing at the sight of the dog. "You brought the creature again," she said, her voice firm. Daniel nodded, and replied that Rex was part of the negotiation team. One of her guards muttered something in Krell language about human arrogance. Sira silenced him with a gesture and told Daniel to follow her inside. The station's main chamber was cold and dimly lit. A long table of rusted metal stood in the center. Sheer waited there, his arms crossed, his gaze fixed on Daniel. They began by discussing borders, trade, and safe passage through Krell space. The talks were tense, but no one raised their voice. Rex sat quietly by Daniel's chair, watching every move. At one point, Sheer leaned forward and asked why humans brought animals into dangerous situations. Daniel answered that Rex was not a weapon, but a companion. He explained that on Earth, some bonds were stronger than any contract. Sheer scoffed, but Sira listened with interest. It was the first time she had heard a human speak of loyalty, as if it were sacred. The talks ended without agreement, but also without threats. That alone was progress. As Daniel prepared to leave, Sira stepped closer. She asked if she could approach Rex. Daniel told her she could, but warned her to move slowly. The princess hesitated, then crouched slightly and held out her hand. Rex sniffed it and let her touch his fur. Her guards shifted uncomfortably, unsure if this was wise. But Sira's face softened for a moment. She asked what the creature's name meant. Daniel explained that Rex was a word from an old Earth language meaning king. Sira seemed amused, saying the name suited him. It was the first time she smiled in Daniel's presence. When they left the mining station, the tension in the air was less than before. Daniel knew this did not mean the Krell trusted him, but it meant the first crack had appeared in the wall between their peoples. Sometimes that was all it took to change the course of a war. Back on the human ship, Mara questioned whether Daniel's decision to bring Rex had been luck or strategy. Daniel only said that some meetings needed more than words. He believed that Sira had seen something today she would not forget. Whether it would lead to peace or danger, he could not yet tell. On the Krell flagship, Sira sat alone in her quarters. She kept thinking about the way Rex had looked at her, not as prey, not as a servant, but as an equal. It was unsettling. She had been taught all her life that trust was weakness, yet here was a creature from another world showing it freely. The seeds of doubt in her upbringing had begun to grow. Sira wondered if meeting this human and his strange companion was fate or accident. Either way, she knew the days ahead would test her more than any battle she had fought before. The fragile truce between the humans and the Krell lasted only a few days. Reports came in from the outer sectors of Krell space that one of their patrols had been attacked. The attackers left no survivors, and the blame quickly fell on the human ship. Daniel was summoned to answer the accusation before the Krell High Council. Mara warned him that this was dangerous. The council was known for swift and unforgiving judgment. But Daniel refused to hide. He believed running would make them look guilty. Rex stayed close to his side as the shuttle from the human ship approached the towering Krell capital station. Inside the council chamber, the air was thick with hostility. Rows of armored Krell elders sat in a wide circle, their eyes glowing under the dim light. Sira was there too, seated near her father, the High Chieftain. She kept her face unreadable, but her mind was racing. If the council condemned the humans, there would be no second chance. The first elder stood and accused Daniel of sending his crew to ambush the patrol. Daniel denied it, stating his ship had never left its assigned orbit since the last meeting. The council demanded proof. Daniel presented navigation logs, but the elders were not satisfied. They said logs could be altered. Sira leaned forward and asked for the attackers' descriptions. The patrol survivors had been killed, but automated records showed the attackers were in fast, narrow ships painted in black and red. Daniel recognized the pattern immediately. It belonged to a group of raiders who had attacked human convoys in the past. He told the council they were the real culprits. Some elders dismissed this, claiming humans could easily paint their ships in false colors. Tension rose as voices clashed across the chamber. Rex growled softly, sensing the hostility around his human. Daniel placed a calming hand on the dog's head, never breaking eye contact with the elders. The High Chieftain finally raised his hand for silence. He declared that until the truth was proven, the human ship would be detained under guard. Sira felt her chest tighten. This decision was one step away from declaring war. She asked for permission to investigate the attack herself. Her father hesitated, then agreed, but only if she took a full escort. Later, outside the chamber, Sira approached Daniel. She told him she did not believe he was lying, but she could not openly defend him without evidence. Daniel offered to help her track the raiders. Sira frowned, knowing her father would never approve humans joining a Krell military operation. Daniel simply said that finding the truth mattered more than permission. That night, Sira left the capital station with her escort of warriors. Daniel and Mara followed in their own ship, staying just outside sensor range. The trail led them into a dense asteroid field, where broken signals from the raiders could be picked up. The debris made navigation dangerous, but Sira pressed on. In the shadow of a large asteroid, they found the raider ships. Their black and red hulls matched the recordings. The raiders were busy looting a crippled freighter, unaware of the approaching Krell and human ships. Sira gave the order to move in, but the asteroids made it difficult for the Krell ships to maneuver quickly. Daniel saw an opening through the rocks and took it. His smaller vessel darted ahead, drawing the attention of the raiders. They opened fire, but Daniel's ship dodged between the asteroid fragments. This gave Sira's forces the chance to flank and trap them. The raiders tried to escape but were quickly overwhelmed. When the battle ended, several raiders were captured alive. Under interrogation, they admitted to attacking the Krell patrol to provoke a war between humans and the Krell. Their employer remained unknown, but it was clear the humans had nothing to do with the attack. Sierra felt both relief and suspicion at the same time. The next day, back at the council chamber, Sierra presented the captured raiders and their confessions. The elders had no choice but to clear the humans of blame. Daniel stood quietly as the verdict was read, his expression calm. Rex sat beside him, his eyes fixed on the High Chieftain. The council dropped the charges, but not all suspicion vanished. Some elders warned that humans could still be dangerous. Sierra noticed the way Daniel accepted the decision without gloating. It was a trait she rarely saw among her own people. It made her wonder what kind of leader he truly was. As Daniel left the chamber, he glanced at Sierra and gave a brief nod. She returned it without a word. The storm had passed for now, but both of them knew the path ahead was far from safe. The tension between the humans and the Krell was calmer after the raider plot was exposed, but calm in Krell space never lasted long. Within a week, a distress signal reached the council from a frontier colony near the edge of their territory. The message was brief and urgent, reporting a large hostile force approaching. Sierra was chosen to lead the response. She gathered a fleet of fast warships, preparing to intercept the threat before it reached the colony. To her surprise, Daniel's ship was also ordered to join. The High Chieftain had decided that the humans' knowledge of raider tactics could be useful. Some elders protested, but the decision stood. When Sierra met Daniel on the launch platform, she made it clear this was a combat mission, not a negotiation. He agreed without argument, though his calm expression made her wonder if he had already guessed the true danger. Rex padded silently at his side, his ears twitching at the distant roar of the Krell engines. The journey to the colony took 2 days. During that time, Sierra kept her focus on fleet coordination, but she noticed Daniel studying star charts with unusual intensity. When she asked what he was looking for, he explained that raiders rarely attacked without backup. He believed the hostile force might be part of something larger. They arrived to find the colony already under siege. Dozens of enemy ships circled the settlement, firing on its shields. On the ground, defense towers tried to hold them off but were being overwhelmed. Sierra ordered her fleet to split into 2 wings, one attacking from above, the other sweeping in low to draw fire. Daniel's smaller vessel darted into the heart of the battle, weaving between enemy ships. He knew the Krell capital ships were too slow to cut through the attackers quickly. By taking the lead, he could disrupt their formation. Rex stood at the bridge beside him, unbothered by the shaking of the ship. In the middle of the fight, a massive cruiser emerged from behind the planet. Its hull bore no markings, but its weapons were powerful enough to threaten the entire fleet. Sierra realized too late that this had been the enemy's real strategy: lure the defenders in close, then strike with overwhelming force. Daniel hailed her ship and proposed a risky plan. He had noticed a weakness in the cruiser's shield system, but reaching it meant flying directly through a narrow gap under heavy fire. Sierra hesitated, knowing the odds were against survival. Daniel simply told her to keep the enemy distracted while he made the attempt. The human ship dove toward the cruiser, enemy fire flashing past its hull. At the last moment, Daniel rolled the vessel through the shield gap and launched a barrage of missiles at the exposed core. The explosion tore through the cruiser's main power grid, leaving it adrift. The remaining enemy ships began to scatter. With the threat broken, Sierra's fleet pressed the advantage. The attackers were driven away from the colony and the settlements. Shields finally powered down. As relief spread through the defenders, Sierra found herself watching Daniel's ship return, its hull scorched but intact. She realized he had acted without waiting for her order. When they met again on the surface, she confronted him about his reckless move. Daniel replied that saving lives was worth more than following protocol. For a moment, Sierra felt a flash of anger, but it faded when she saw Rex wagging his tail at the colonists who came to thank them. It was difficult to stay angry in the face of such loyalty. Later that night, the colonists held a small gathering to honor the defenders. Sierra stood apart from the crowd, watching Daniel speak with the settlers as if he belonged there. He asked nothing in return for his help, which was rare in Krell society. She began to understand that humans valued more than power or victory. The next morning, as the fleet prepared to leave, a damaged enemy probe was recovered from the battlefield. Its data revealed coordinates far beyond Krell territory, possibly the base of the hostile force. The High Chieftain ordered Sierra to investigate, and Daniel offered to join. She did not refuse this time, as their ships left the colony behind. Sierra knew the next mission would be more dangerous than anything before. Yet she felt something had shifted between her and the human. They were no longer simply allies of circumstance. They were becoming partners in a fight neither of them fully understood. The coordinates from the damaged probe led Sierra and Daniel far beyond Krell borders. The region was uncharted and filled with drifting debris from old battles. The further they went, the quieter their sensors became. It was as if something was jamming every signal except the ones guiding them forward. Sierra kept her fleet small for speed, but she placed scouts ahead. Daniel followed with his ship a short distance behind hers. Rex stayed close to the bridge window, watching the shadows between the wreckage. The silence of space pressed against them like a weight, making every movement feel slower. Half a day later, the scouts reported a structure ahead. It was massive, built into the remains of an asteroid, and surrounded by automated defense turrets. The design did not match any known Krell or human style. Sierra suspected this was the hidden base of the raiders, though the scale suggested they had far more resources than anyone guessed. Daniel suggested approaching from two sides. His ship could draw the attention of the turrets, while Sierra's fleet slipped in through the gaps. Sierra considered the plan, knowing it placed the human ship in the most danger. Daniel simply said that distraction was something humans were good at. The attack began with a burst of movement. Daniel's ship darted between the rocks, weaving through incoming fire. Sierra's fleet moved into position, targeting the turrets with precision shots. One by one, the defenses began to fall. But just as they neared the asteroid base, new enemy ships emerged from hidden bays. These ships were faster and better armed than the raiders they had faced before. They swarmed toward Daniel's position, forcing him to retreat toward the debris field. Sierra tried to send two of her fastest ships to assist, but the enemy intercepted them before they could reach him. The battle shifted into chaos. In the middle of the fight, a massive blast shook Sierra's flagship. An enemy boarding craft had latched onto the hull. Krell warriors rushed to defend the corridors, but the attackers fought with unusual discipline. They moved as if their goal was not to destroy the ship but to capture someone inside it. Sierra realized too late that the enemy wanted her alive. She fought through the smoke-filled hallway, her blade cutting down two attackers before a third struck her from behind. She fell hard, her vision swimming. Through the haze, she saw one of the enemy soldiers reach for her arm. A sharp bark echoed down the corridor, followed by a blur of golden fur. Rex had leapt from the human boarding shuttle that had just arrived. He hit the soldier with enough force to knock him to the floor. Daniel was right behind, firing his sidearm to clear the remaining attackers. He pulled Sierra to her feet, asking if she could move. She nodded, though her pride was more bruised than her body. With the enemy boarding team defeated, Daniel helped Sierra back to the bridge. The fight outside was still raging, but the asteroid base's defenses were weakening. Coordinating their fleets, they pressed forward. A final volley from the combined forces destroyed the main power hub, plunging the base into darkness. The surviving enemy ships scattered into the uncharted region. Sira ordered pursuit, but Daniel advised against it. He believed the enemy had already achieved what they wanted, to test the strength and coordination of the human and Krell forces. Chasing them might lead into another trap. Back on the flagship, Sira studied the data recovered from the base's computers. It showed supply routes stretching across sectors neither human nor Krell controlled. Whoever was behind the raids was building something far larger than a pirate network. She understood now that the threat could reach both their homeworlds if not stopped. Daniel stood beside her, silent for a moment, before saying they would need to work together more closely than before. Sira found herself agreeing without hesitation. She had seen how quickly he acted to protect her, and she could not deny that his presence on the battlefield had changed the outcome of the fight. As the combined fleet began its journey back toward Krell space, the two leaders exchanged a quiet look of understanding. The danger ahead was greater than either had faced alone, but now they shared a bond forged in battle and survival. Whatever the enemy planned next, they would face it together. Journey back to Krell space was uneasy. The fleet traveled in formation, wary of ambush, but the enemy never appeared. The silence felt wrong to Daniel. It was not the relief of safety, but the stillness before another strike. He kept scanning the dark beyond the stars, waiting for movement. When they arrived at the Krell capital, the High Chieftain demanded a full report. Sira described the asteroid base, the advanced ships, and the strange tactics used in the attack. Daniel spoke of the possibility that this force was not just a pirate band, but a coordinated power preparing for war. Some elders dismissed the warning, but others listened with unease. The meeting was interrupted by a sudden alert. Long-range sensors had detected massive energy spikes near the border. The readings were too strong to be from mining or trade fleets. They suggested a buildup of warships on a scale neither Krell nor human forces had faced in decades. The council called for immediate action. Sira volunteered to lead a reconnaissance mission. She argued that sending a large fleet would alert the enemy, while a smaller force could slip in unnoticed. Daniel offered his ship for the task, stating that humans were skilled in avoiding detection. After a moment of tense silence, the High Chieftain approved the joint operation. The mission began under the cover of a nearby pulsar's radiation. The glare and interference made tracking difficult, but it also shielded them from enemy sensors. Sira handled navigation while Daniel monitored energy signatures. Rex lay near the console, his ears perking up at every shift in the ship's hum. After several hours, they reached the edge of an unmarked system. There, in the shadow of a gas giant, floated a massive fleet. Hundreds of ships were arranged in perfect formation, each one armed with weapons that glowed faintly even at rest. The sight was enough to make even Sira pause in silence. Daniel recorded everything, but he knew they could not stay long. The longer they observed, the greater the risk of being detected. As they turned to leave, a pair of enemy scout ships broke away from the fleet and began moving toward their position. Sira quickly diverted power to the engines, guiding the ship through the rings of the gas giant. The chase was swift and dangerous. Fragments of ice and rock slammed against the hull as they weaved through the rings. Daniel fired countermeasures, creating bursts of debris to block enemy sensors. One scout ship was forced to break off, but the other pressed closer. Sira ordered Rex to the safety harness as Daniel prepared for a sharp maneuver. With a sudden roll, Daniel brought the ship into a dense cluster of ice boulders. The enemy followed, only to be caught by a collision it could not avoid. The explosion lit the rings in a brief flash before fading into darkness. The human and Krell ship escaped into the pulsar's interference before more enemies could react. When they returned to the Krell capital, the council chamber was silent as Daniel played the recordings. The scale of the enemy fleet could no longer be denied. Even the most skeptical elders understood that a joint defense between humans and Krell was now the only option. The High Chieftain gave Sira full authority to coordinate with human command. Later, away from the council, Sira spoke to Daniel in private. She admitted that without his quick thinking, they would not have escaped. Daniel replied that her navigation had been just as critical. Rex sat between them, his calm presence grounding the weight of what they had seen. They both knew the coming war would decide the fate of their peoples. That night, Daniel stood on the observation deck of his ship, looking at the distant stars. Sira joined him without a word. For a long moment, they watched the void together, knowing the enemy fleet was somewhere out there, preparing for its move. The next step would be the hardest yet. Preparations for war began the moment the Council accepted the truth about the enemy fleet. Krell shipyards worked day and night to reinforce their vessels. Human engineers arrived with new shield generators and targeting systems, trading their technology for Krell armor designs. For the first time in history, the two species built weapons side by side. Daniel oversaw the integration of human tech into Krell warships. He was impressed by the speed and precision of their workers, though he noticed they often questioned his methods. Sira handled those doubts with sharp orders, making it clear that cooperation was not optional. Together, they pushed the project forward faster than anyone expected. Rex became an unusual presence in the busy hangars. Krell engineers at first avoided him, wary of his teeth and silent watchfulness. But over time, they realized he was not a threat. Some even began leaving bits of dried meat for him, and the dog accepted these offerings with calm dignity, while the fleets prepared. Intelligence reports warned that the enemy might strike before the alliance was ready. Daniel argued for a forward defense, intercepting the fleet before it could reach populated systems. Sira countered that such a move could stretch their forces too thin. The debate lasted hours before they agreed on a hybrid plan. The plan placed several smaller fleets along possible approach routes, with a central strike group ready to reinforce wherever the enemy appeared. Daniel and Sira would lead that strike group together. It was a dangerous role, one that would put them in the heart of the fighting the moment contact was made. 2 weeks later, their sensors picked up movement near a sparsely inhabited moon. Recon ships confirmed the presence of enemy cruisers, advancing information toward a Krell mining station. Daniel ordered the strike group to move out. Sira's voice over the comm carried no hesitation as she confirmed her ships were in position. When they arrived, the battle began almost instantly. The enemy opened fire on the mining station, forcing the Alliance to split its focus between defense and attack. Daniel's ship drew the attention of several fast enemy fighters, weaving through their formation to disrupt their aim. Sira's heavier ships moved in to block the path to the station. The enemy fought with brutal coordination. Their cruisers shielded the smaller ships, allowing them to strike from multiple angles. For a moment, the Alliance line began to waver. Daniel pushed his ship forward, targeting the lead cruiser's engines. The blast shook the enemy formation, giving Sira the opening to push her fleet into their flank. Rex stood braced near the bridge console, steady despite the jolts of battle. His presence was a silent reminder of why Daniel fought, to protect those who could not protect themselves. Sira's voice came through the comm again, ordering a full charge on the weakened enemy line. The combined strike tore through their defenses. The remaining enemy ships retreated toward deep space, leaving the mining station battered but intact. The Allied crews cheered the victory, but Daniel felt a weight in his chest. This had been only a forward detachment. The true enemy fleet was still out there, waiting for the right moment to strike. Back aboard the flagship, Sira joined Daniel in the strategy room. She acknowledged the win but reminded him that the enemy had likely learned just as much about them as they had about the enemy. They both knew the next fight would be far more difficult. The data from the battle confirmed that the enemy weapons had improved since their last encounter. That night, the two leaders walked the length of the hangar, inspecting damage and speaking to the crews. Daniel noticed how the Krell warriors now looked at him with something close to respect. Sierra also saw it. The alliance was no longer just a political necessity. It was becoming a force united by trust and shared survival. The next morning, new intelligence arrived. Enemy scouts had been detected in 3 different sectors at once. This was a clear sign that the final offensive was about to begin. Daniel and Sierra exchanged a look, knowing that the next decision they made could decide the future of both their peoples. Asterisk. The 3 enemy scout sightings turned out to be diversions. Within hours, long-range sensors picked up the real threat, an armada moving in from the far edge of the system. The fleet was larger than anything the Alliance had faced before, its ships stretching across the void like a wall of steel. Every vessel in the Krell and human forces was called to action. Daniel and Sierra stood on the flagship's bridge as the strike group prepared. The atmosphere was heavy with the knowledge that this battle would decide everything. Technicians moved quickly between stations, feeding constant updates into the tactical displays. Outside the viewport, Allied ships moved into tight formation, ready to meet the enemy head-on. The first exchange of fire lit the darkness like lightning. Enemy cruisers surged forward, unleashing volleys of plasma at the Alliance lines. The Krell ships absorbed the first wave, their reinforced armor holding strong. Human vessels responded with precision strikes, targeting weak points in enemy shields. The battlefield became a shifting storm of energy and metal. Sierra commanded her fleet with sharp, clear orders. Her voice cut through the noise of battle, keeping her captains focused. Daniel coordinated flanking maneuvers, guiding fast human craft into the gaps the Krell heavy ships created. Together, their tactics began to push the enemy back from the center line, but the enemy's true strength was yet to appear. From the shadow of their command ship, a formation of massive carriers emerged, each launching waves of attack drones. These machines swarmed toward the Alliance fleets, overwhelming defense turrets with sheer numbers. For a moment, the momentum shifted, and the Alliance line began to falter. Daniel ordered his fastest ships to form a moving wall ahead of the drones, using rapid-fire weapons to cut them down before they could reach the main fleet. Sierra directed her capital ships to target the carriers themselves, knowing that stopping the source was the only way to survive. The sky above the battle burned with explosions. In the middle of the chaos, the enemy command ship advanced. Its hull was layered with shields that absorbed every strike. The vessel loomed larger on the sensors, its weapons locking onto the flagship. Sierra's officers shouted warnings, but Daniel's voice cut in over the proposing a desperate move. He would take his ship directly into the command vessel's shield gap while the flagship drew its fire. Sierra's first instinct was to refuse, but the logic was clear. Without destroying the command ship, the battle would be lost. She agreed, sending a coded signal to open a path for him. Daniel's vessel broke away, racing through the collapsing lines. Rex stood braced beside him, eyes locked forward as if he understood the stakes. Enemy fighters swarmed to intercept, but Allied ships moved to block them, taking heavy losses in the process. Daniel reached the shield gap and fired a spread of torpedoes directly into the command vessel's power core. The explosion was massive, shaking the entire battlefield and sending shockwaves through the enemy formation. With their command ship destroyed, the enemy fleet's coordination shattered. Krell and human ships pressed the attack, driving the remaining vessels into retreat. The sky cleared slowly, the silence after the fighting almost as heavy as the noise had been. Victory had come at a high cost, but it was complete. On the flagship's bridge, Sierra received the final reports. Many ships would never return, but the Alliance had survived. She turned to Daniel as his image appeared on the his ship scarred, but intact. Her words were simple. Without him, they would not have seen this day. Later, in the capital, the victory was honored with a joint ceremony. Krell warriors stood beside human officers, their banners displayed together for the first time. Rex sat proudly at Daniel's side, wearing a simple collar with both the Krell crest and the human emblem engraved on it. The sight drew quiet respect from everyone present. As the celebrations faded into the night, Syrah spoke quietly to Daniel. She told him the alliance would hold, not because of politics, but because trust had been earned in fire. Daniel replied that trust was the only true shield in a galaxy full of war. For the first time, she felt the weight of her role lift slightly. When the human ship departed Krell space, Syrah stood at the docking bay and watched it vanish into the stars. The war had changed her, and it had changed her people. She knew they would never look at humans the same way again. And she knew that if danger came again, they would stand together without hesitation.